This is Dr. Bill Quarter with one question for today's presentation. Can we predict the next president? Yes. Now that seems like a strange question on a presentation that's directed towards health. But in the last presentation, we discussed the negative impact of news and the negative impact of watching too much negative news, the evening news, the 24-hour news channels. And I wanted to highlight that we're heading into the worst period. We're heading into the 2-year period of presidential politics. They dominate the news. I think we've all seen the movie, or many of us have seen the movie, The American President. How do you become president? I'll simplify it further. You become president by saying we have ABC problems, and the other party is the cause of those problems. So it's one negative level and another negative level. And the way you convince the public to vote for you is to convince them how bad the other individual or other party is. So we're all bracing for a 2-year run of immense negativity. That bothers me because that negativity impacts our health collectively. And so what's the best way to interrupt a story or to interrupt a movie? The best way, at least to allow you to back away, is to know the ending. And so today I want to share my belief in how you can predict who's going to be the next president. And it's the Elliott wave theory. I don't know if any of you have heard of it, but I want to give you an explanation and then tie it into the next presidential election, so you'll be able to know ahead of time who's going to win and be able to turn off the TV. The Elliott wave theory is best representative by a series of waves. As someone who grew up in Southern California, who spent a lot of time in the ocean, there's a natural evolution to waves. And it is true and it is universal. Waves often come most commonly in a set of 5. What you have in the ocean is you have a trough where the water is a bit calm. And then you have the first wave. You have a peak and a valley. And then you have a second wave, a peak and a valley. And a third wave, a peak and a valley. And the third wave is usually a little bit higher than the first two. Then you have a fourth wave, a peak and a valley. And a fifth wave and a peak and a valley. But you don't get a valley on the fifth wave, you get another trough. That's the pattern of waves. It's the pattern of evolution for history. And it's a pattern this country has just gone through in the last 70 to 80 years. Think about it for a second. The trough was in the 1920s and 1930s. The second trough was in 2007 when the market crashed, from 2007 to around 2010. Where we were really in a significant recession. And in between those two troughs, we had the pattern of history. America had 5 separate waves. If you want to put it into context, wave 3 was in the 60s. It was with President Kennedy. It was with the going to the moon. It was when the Beatles were on the radio. That was the third wave, and the third wave is often the highest wave. Now, how does all of this relate to politics and to news? It's very simple, and that is parties that are in power stay in power when the natural wave of history is on an upswing. If you're on an upswing, the economy of the country is rising. If you're on an upswing, the mood of the country is rising. And when the economy is rising and the mood is rising, your mood and the country's mood, you tend to keep the person in power staying in power. When you're on a valley, the opposite happens. You want that person out of office. You're going downward, you're not happy, you want something new, something different. And so when you look at elections, so many of us think, oh, it's the individual that makes the difference. It actually is the moment in history the moment in the evolution of the 5 waves that makes the difference. And you may ask yourself, why are so many Republicans announcing for the presidency? I think we're double digit at this point. We got 2 years left to go. Why? Because there's a chance you may be going into a valley. We've come out of the trough, and now we're starting that first wave. We had a period of growth. We had a period where the mood was a little bit better. There's been a little bit of slippage. So the key question between now and the day of election is whether we'll continue to slide downward into a valley or whether we'll go through the valley and start to come up. If at the time of election, by election day, we have hit the bottom of the valley and started upward, the Democrats will stay in power. If, however, we're still going downward at the time of the election, the Republicans will come into the presidency. Again, it's the evolution of history. And it's not just America. You can take it to any country, study it, look at the course of span of time, and you'll see that same pattern. It's a pattern of evolution. So my recommendation for you is the following. In 6 months before the election, 4 months before the election, take a little assessment of your own mood. Are you feeling better these days? Are you feeling worse? And see if you're in sync with the rest of this country. If you are, you can easily predict which candidate, which party is going to win. And from my standpoint, that allows you to step away from all the debates and all the discussions. They may be interesting to you. Great, follow it. But don't submerge yourself into it. Because again, if you do, then you're having the negativity. You're having the reverse of the Norman Cousins effect, which we discussed in the prior presentation. You're allowing yourself to be impacted by more and more negative news, more and more things that get you a little bit upset and really derail your health. And again, when you look at toxins, and to close, when you look at toxins, yes, we can look at the chemicals and the contaminants. We can look at all of the negative components that filter into our life. But news, again, is one of those components. And this election cycle is one of those components. So my recommendation for you and my hope for a habit for you, as strange as it sounds, is to back away from the election, back away from the news. And I think if you do, it will allow you more time to focus on yourself. It will allow you more time to focus on your physical health, doing the right things in terms of your eating style and your physical exercise, doing the right things in terms of the good habits, the healthy habits that keep you physically fit and physically alert and increase your longevity. You need time for that. You can't let other components throw you off guard. And I do think the news, presidential elections, and all that contamination is exactly that, contamination. So develop the habit of stepping away, know who's going to win ahead of time, and give yourself a break. Thanks for listening. Thanks for allowing me to share my perspective. And I hope that we can kind of learn from each other. And 2 years from now, we'll see if I'm accurate or not. But give it a try. I think it will help your health. Thank you. Subscribe if you're interested. Come to my websites if you're interested. A lot of material on health, and I hope I can help you get healthy. Thank you.